right, welcome to episode 4 of Nexus Digest. Dan Ricci, the founder of the ICS Advisory Project and a day one Nexus contributor, joins us today. Dan and I are going to discuss an article he wrote recently that was titled From Inventory to Insight. And basically, the article talks about how to leverage OT visibility to achieve concrete risk reduction. So it's great to see you, Dan. How you doing?
Doing well. Thank you, Michael. Great to be here.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for giving me a few minutes. I'm glad the audience is going to get to hear from you on this. So let's talk about your most recent contribution. Really great stuff. It's going to be linked here in the video, and I urge everybody to read it, share it internally. There's a lot of valuable information in here. So basically, you start off talking about how a lot of organizations, get these asset lists from their tools, whatever they might be, and they kind of think of that as an asset inventory, and you distinguish between the two. So tell me I think it's a good table setter kind of question. How do you view the two in terms of differences?
Well, an asset list is your basic enumeration of your devices, the IP addresses assigned to those devices if they're assigned with static IP addresses, the physical location, device type, whether it's PLC, HMI, historian, vendor model. But like getting into like when you start to get into the asset inventory side, that starts to have like highly more contextual data. Now we're looking at, the firmware and software versionings associated with it. Are there specific advisories, vendor event vulnerability advisories attached to that are applicable to that asset? Are they been patched or not? Right? What the patched asset are, or they're not going to patch it. That's fine too. What are the compensated controls that are in place to protect it? What is the communications relationship between that asset, the data flow between that device and the rest of the OT environment, whether
Hmm.
it's communicating with another PLC or it communicates only directly with the SCADA server. Then you got to look at what's the criticality of that asset? What's the process impact rating of that? Is it a crown jewel? It's essential to that to the business industrial operations or not? What's the owner? Who's the owner of that asset and the responsible party who maintains the operation and maintenance side? Process control engineer, uh, instrumentation control engineer that might be responsible for that device.
Hmm.
Uh, what vendor support status? We talked about whether it's a end of life product. So if it's end of life, there's no longer patch support for it or end of service, or that specific control system asset is no longer supported by the system integrator or the company went out of business. That's very possible as well. And then, when was the last time that asset was seen on the network? So there's a lot more to just having,
Right.
asset device list. So hopefully that's a helpful distinction between the two pieces here.
Yeah. And how good are existing tools in providing all that context? I mean, how much of that is automated versus manual, I guess is what I'm asking.
A lot of it can be automated
Yeah.
with a lot of the products that are out there. There's passive tools out there that can help do this asset identification, such as like Wireshark, T-Shark. You can use Network Miner. These are all like kind of open source products that you can help to start to build the the asset list and the rest of the asset inventory data you'd want to bring into it. Then you have tools that can help you start to identify the vendor vulnerability data. ICS Advisory Project supports it. You can use CISA directly. You can go to the vendor's website for the asset if they still exist. Then you can also look at uh, using that vendor to also help identify what the most current firmware version that should be running on that software.
Right.
Identifying it within your environment, you might be able to identify it through passive packet capture, full content. Doing identifying the data flow between those networks. You can look at your flow data between and that can be done all passively using your existing network infrastructure. You can use your logs from your router. You're from your router. You can also look
Yeah.
at your switch configurations. I mean, their configuration analysis is very powerful in trying to fill these gaps and trying to
Hmm.
provide that asset inventory picture. So, I mean, I could go on probably a lot longer about this.
In the article too, you referenced CIS's OT inventory guidance, and you mentioned that inventories should be organized, regularly updated, physically validated. How difficult is that? Are those steps, and how often are organizations actually going that extra mile, if it's an extra mile?
I wouldn't be able to speak directly on how many like asset owners are
Yeah.
actually going in that direction. But I will say that CISA does a very good job providing the step-by-step guidance, although it might be high level, it gives you a great starting point for building your asset inventory. I want to say it very much aligns with, giving asset owners the foundational information to uh, to scope, understand the objectives. A point that I really didn't touch on in the last piece was like, how do you identify the your crown jewels? And that a lot of that comes down to understanding what the risk of to that specific asset is to your organizations or business operations.
So
You
that really
need,
becomes like a business impact discussion at that point, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's classified by, function and criticality. The CISA OT asset inventory guidance hits on it as far as like creating a taxonomy, right? Of classifying by function and criticality. And then, another piece is, asset inventories are and asset management in general is a living document. It's not a static document. So you're
Right.
looking at, managing that data and implementing a asset lifecycle management, tracking it to end of life.
Hmm. So once you have that inventory, give me some examples of what it can be used to enable in terms of the rest of the security program. Obviously, it's very foundational, and you probably can't start anything else without a decent inventory and visibility into what you have. But
Well, I mean, key point of having an asset inventory or is understanding what your organizational risk and then how to defend it and how you can actively defend it. Because now you have the ability to understand what the baseline configuration of those assets are, which is so if there is something that does occur in your environment, if that asset is manipulated in a way that is off its known baseline, you can identify that rather quickly. It helps tremendously in incident response, because that way you're able to really know for sure, there was definitely a change made, but who made the change? You could you could start to do the root cause analysis of
hmm.
understanding what happened, because based off of like the known configuration that something happened on the device that tampered with the current configurations, like a set point was changed, a, s- a connection or a configuration to devices that it normally does not communicate with now is communicating with it, or it's making connections out to a public IP when it should only be
Hmm.
communicating on private IP addresses within the environment, or it's communicating with a device that it's never communicated with before. So having that asset inventory allows you to detect possible indications of compromise.
And so, just kind of as a last thought, I mean, how continuous is this in terms of as a process, as an exercise? How do you keep it from being just kind of a point in time thing that really isn't useful? How, just give me some advice in that direction.
I think more than a technical, more than just a technical challenge. It's a people and process challenge, right? And having a identifying those roles of responsibility that can enable and sustain um, the management of solid asset inventory, leveraging technology to automate and reduce the amount of time it would be to gather and maintain, but also develop a schedule that would address what can't be covered by passive monitoring, like a physical inventory that's maybe done annually to kind of help keep this alive over time. Also, I mean, some organizations are contract out a lot of their ICS OT asset operations and maintenance. So, looking at their contract and seeing how that might help them maintain and track their asset inventory and hit on maintaining baseline configuration information and ensuring that's documented. And maybe out of that, they produce a a file that can be integrated with the current asset inventory for management.
Hmm.
It's the only way I think organizations could really stay on top and manage risk because you know visibility only matters when it drives real and continuous risk reduction, right?
Right.
For small and medium OT environments, security success isn't measured on, how many tools they have deployed and how many assets are discovered. It's measured by whether risk is actually going down over time, right? And also whether, every alert, every scan on every asset should feed into like their cycle of prioritization and action and validation. It kind of moves the organization from a posture of like hope to one of resilience.
And that's the goal, right? Resilience.
Yeah, it's not something that is hope's not a plan,
Yeah.
but having
All
a
right.
having a plan is key to being successful and recovery in a lot of these situations.
Hmm. All right, Dan, I think that's a good place to leave it. I want to thank you so much for coming on, and I appreciate the great work on Nexus always.
Likewise, thank you for your time.
All right, Dan, take care.
Bye.